Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Culture and People cast. Today we have Bill Myhre on. Bill, in a few sentences, would you tell us who you are and what you do?
Thank you. My name is Bill Myhre. I'm the Senior Director of Workforce for the Staten Island Performing Provider System. My job and my colleagues is to transform the workforce in healthcare on Staten Island, New York. We have 10 nursing home partners, 2 hospitals, 3 federal clinics, and more than 50 community organizations. All in my bailiwick is to help people reimagine and redesign the workforce for today and for the future.
Oh, I love it. And look, guys, I'll let you in. Bill and I had a really engaging conversation before this. And so it'll be a challenge for me not to totally geek out and make this an hour-long episode. But there's so many amazing things that you've been doing around truly transforming the workforce of healthcare. So for you, quickly, just a personal reflection, what's the best thing personally about this work?
On a personal level is the feedback that we get from our partner organizations and also from the people that we train and who graduate,
Mm,
who really do recognize increased economic security through better pay, through better benefits, and through a new system to move up a career ladder within an organization, which didn't exist before.
yeah. Right. And with those partnerships, I know you've worked with employers, you worked with government, you worked with labor, you've had so many great partners. As you look at overall, as you've been trying to transform this workforce and you look at the actual people who are doing the work on the front lines, what does the engagement of that talent look like right now? Is it
Well,
challenging? I feel even silly asking that because it feels like, yes.
yes, and I think, to bring it very close to home, um, COVID
Mm,
has really had an impact because a lot of what happens in healthcare also requires that you demonstrate certain skills on the job site. And having access to the job site when there are all these prohibitions for moving to the job site has created some completion challenges for us. But all that being said, over the last 3+ years, we have peer recovery advocates in the substance use world. We went from 2 to more than 75 in that
yeah.
space. We have apprentice programs for certified nursing assistants. That was a heavy lift because we're talking about getting employers, labor, and higher education to the table to redefine skills and to come up with a new curriculum, get it approved by the Department of Labor, fund it, and then move it forward. So COVID is an immediate challenge. And what we're doing on our end, by the way, is to start taking some of that in classroom learning, moving that to online modules, which create 24/7 access. So we are starting to
Yes.
take things like infection control, motivational interviewing, and making them online courses.
Yeah. And you have done so much to make development available and accessible to people, as well as these redefining skills. So, can we get tactical? What suggestions? And I'm sure a lot of this will apply to healthcare, but if you're not in healthcare, listeners, please don't check out because there are a lot of transferable tips here, I promise. So, tactically speaking, Bill, what can an organization do to put skills first and
Mhm.
invest in their people?
Um, Again, our lesson learned, but let me add to that. We have also been recognized by the National Fund for Workforce Solutions. They're a
Mhm.
nonprofit in DC, and it's a competitive process. We were one of 7 organizations selected across the country. So we work and learn with all of our partners at the National Federation. We also work with Business Leaders United, which is non-healthcare. And what we collectively learn in our opportunities here, many employers come back and say your frontline worker is most often ignored. All of
Yeah.
our professional people have ongoing education. So to redefine an organization to have the right match of skills with your frontline customer requires you to look at your frontline worker skill and then bring in the resources, whether they be higher education or adult ed in the high schools, and in some cases organized labor, to sit down and say, what skills we have on the books today, what skills are missing, and redefine a curriculum to recruit and retain these people. So tactically, it's look at your frontline worker, understand from them, from your customer, what skills are truly needed, modify the way the world exists today, develop and implement a learning curriculum that really will give your frontline people the skills to satisfy your customers, and in the end, improve your recruitment and your retention and satisfy your customer.
Oh, Bill, you make it sound so easy, but I know how much heavy lifting you've been doing. So one thing I want to make sure we do is in the show notes, we'll, if you and I can talk afterward to make sure we can connect people, to those resources, the National Fund for Workforce Solutions and those Business Leaders United. I just like to make sure if people are interested, they have a place to go. But who else, would you maybe give a shout out to, Bill, that is doing really great work around the culture and people space, maybe even as a possible guest?
Um, in the healthcare space, Dartmouth healthcare
Mm,
system up in New Hampshire, they've been doing this for a long time. And when we went to do some research, we looked at what they were doing. They served as a benchmark model for us.
okay.
But again, going back to Business Leaders United, they sponsor a day on the Hill. And last year we were down in DC in person. This year it was virtual, but they're a strong advocate for legislation for workforce funding.
Okay.
Um, and then, um, we've worked with in New York, there were regional economic development corporations,
Mhm.
and those regional economic development corporations provide funding. So we work with those folks as well. And on the healthcare side, again, too, when you look at places like nursing homes, you have Leading Age, which is a national group, and they have membership in each state. So Leading Age is another advocacy group for long-term care in healthcare.
Oh, great. I used to work for a long-term care company. I'll make sure to share this episode with them. I think that many of them would find that the whole episode interesting, but also these resources that you've shared. So, Bill, those are some great, overall. Do you have any personal resources, books, podcast articles that have impacted you or your thinking in terms of culture or people?
I think in the last couple of years, what I didn't mention yet was Cornell ILR,
Mm.
Cornell School of Industrial and Labor Relations. They actually came down and studied what we've done, and they published the findings. It's a white paper on our transformation, so
Oh,
people can
great.
people can access Cornell's work. And if people want to send me a personal email, I can forward the Cornell white paper to them. But the Cornell white paper does a very nice job of taking it from startup to the end and measuring the impact across a number of data points, which you don't have time to get into today. But Cornell is one on that side. We were published in the American Hospital Association newsletter this June. And Behavioral Health News also did an extensive article last summer on our outcomes for the SERPA and CHW program. So again, any of that type of information, if people want to email afterward, I can give you the links to pull those down and read a little more in detail about what we've done and some of our outcomes.
Oh, for sure. Well, thank you, Bill. This has been a very informative talk. I know that you and I had some time ahead of time, but I'm hoping that people will take this time to not only listen, but look into some of the resources. They're very transferable. Having worked in a lot of different industries, I know we can beg, borrow, and steal whenever we can. So please, look into these resources. And Bill, thank you for all you're doing for culture and people, not only in New York, but really in the workplace as a whole. I really appreciate you doing that and for being a guest today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much and enjoy the holidays. Stay
Of
well.
of course, peace and progress.